You know, one of the biggest goals that we should have when it comes to wanting to strive for long-term recovery from debilitating conditions like POTS, dysautonomia, long COVID, chronic fatigue syndrome, is that we want to be able to handle a wider variety of external stressors. And one of these key stressors is to be able to handle a wider range of temperatures. Right, so I'm just going to start off by saying that I completely understand this struggle from a first-hand point of view. I was super intolerant when it came to being outside in cold weather environments, and I'd feel super panicky. And when it came to heat in particular, things for example like hot sunny days, being in a bath or a shower, being inside when central heating was on, or just being in an environment where food was being prepared, all of these environments would trigger my symptoms and just cause me to become very panicky and symptomatic. But solely focusing our attention on warm environments, I think one of the first and most important things to note is that our body is continuously detecting changes with our external environment, and then it's modifying its activity to respond to that stressor. So when it comes to these warm temperature environments, ideally what we want is we want our body to recognize the increase in temperature and then produce appropriate amounts of sweating in order to cool down. Let's talk about sweating for a second. So every single sweat gland in the human body is connected to a blood vessel. And the reason for this is because sweat, which is 99% composed of water, has to travel through these blood vessels in order to reach the surface of our skin, to escape the surface of our skin, so that we're then able to dissipate heat, which in turn will allow us to cool down. Now, what's perhaps more important to acknowledge is the fact that every single blood vessel in our body is innervated by our autonomic nervous system. This means that our body's ability to thermoregulate is actually controlled automatically by the activity of our brain and the information that it receives, and it's completely outside of our own conscious control. This also means there's a good probability, if you're somebody who's having issues regulating body temperature and you're finding yourself increasingly sensitive to hot temperatures, that you may be dealing with some sort of neuronal dysfunction within your nervous system or brain, and in turn the knock-on effect of that is it's affecting the function of your blood vessels and how well your body's actually able to dissipate heat. But if you did want to learn more about all of these neuronal pathways and how their dysfunctions may be hindering your quality of life, make sure to check out the Unbeatable Blueprint online course. This is where I take you through a step-by-step plan in over 5 hours worth of content of how you can identify neuronal imbalances within your own body and what it takes to actually balance out and correct these dysfunctions. But now back to the topic of heat intolerance, and I want to let you in on a little secret and tell you the exact mechanism as to why I was suffering so badly with this for a number of years. So after I went through extensive neurological testing that was performed by a trained chiropractic neurologist, what he uncovered was that I had certain areas of hyperactivity occurring in my brain, and in particular it was an area of my brainstem called the pons. And what the pons helps with is it helps to control our unconscious respiratory rate. And seen as this area was hyperactive, what it was causing me to do was unconsciously hyperventilate. And this was actually a major issue for me, because what this caused was it caused my body to blow off excess amounts of carbon dioxide. So where my levels should have been between 35 and 45 millimeters of mercury, what my levels actually were 26 millimeters of mercury. And unfortunately, when the body senses low amounts of carbon dioxide, one of the big knock-on effects of this is it ends up constricting blood vessels, which of course isn't an ideal situation when it comes to sweating and actually being able to dissipate heat, because in order for sweat to actually escape through our skin, our blood vessels need to be open and dilated. However, after performing targeted neurological exercises to calm down the areas of hyperactivity within my pons, what this then caused was my unconscious respiratory rate to slow down, and in turn I was able to retain higher levels of carbon dioxide, And with these levels being more within an appropriate range, it then allowed for my blood vessels to successfully dilate, which meant that I was then able to sweat, and in turn I was able to handle a wider variety of temperatures and actually be out in hot environments for much longer. Now, could the mechanism that's causing your heat intolerance be different to mine? Quite possibly. However, because I believe there's a high likelihood that the autonomic nervous system is involved in one way or another, I still believe the best way forward for all of us with this issue is to have the function of our brain and peripheral nervous system assessed. And the main reason for wanting to do this is to identify certain areas of dysfunction within these neuronal networks and then work on ways of gradually correcting them with targeted neurological exercises, because in turn that should then allow your body to better self-regulate, which will then allow you to withstand a wider variety of temperatures.